Welcome to Uncopyable Women in Sales. If you're looking for actionable insights and real-world tools to turbocharge your sales starting tomorrow, well, you're in the right place. Your host, Kay Miller, earned the affectionate nickname Muffler Mama when she sold more automotive mufflers than anyone else in the world. In this podcast, Kay will talk to another superstar woman in sales as they reveal uncopyable strategies you can use to rack up more leads, snag dream clients, and take your sales numbers through the roof. Stay tuned and get ready to make more sales and how about this? More money.
I'm excited about today's guest, Ruth King. Ruth is an author, coach, and trainer who is well known as the profit and wealth guru. She has a knack for helping businesses truly understand financials and helps them apply their knowledge to fuel massive growth, income, and profits. Ruth, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Kay. I'm happy to be here.
It's fun to chat with you because we know each other a little bit. We have worked together off and on through the years, and you've been a big fan of the uncopyable philosophy, finding your moose, of course, which is what we call the target market, and being uncopyable so that you're the only choice. And you have some very unique capabilities and qualities that draw a lot of customers to you. So why don't you start out and tell us a little bit about your business?
So I actually do a lot of different things, and we can break it down into things that people want to read, but don't necessarily want to engage. We can break it into people who want to engage on an online perspective, but not necessarily with me individually. We can then break it down into people who engage with me in either a speaking engagement or a training class, or we can break it down into the one-on-one consulting. So, we do all of those things. And the reality of it is there are different people who fit into the different niches. So I don't know whether you're aware of this, but I once asked Steve whether I could have two moose. And he said, yes, you can. Dominate the first one first.
That's a good, yes, sounds very familiar, that advice. Yes. Yeah. You can have different moose, but get the low-hanging fruit first, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been on a quest to actually do some things that are not dependent upon me. So we've actually put that together and we're starting that process, which has been phenomenally interesting. Let's leave it that way. We talked about
we're
that.
Not going to delve into that, huh?
Yeah. And that's how the two moose question came up, in which I asked you. So,
by the way, Steve Miller is my husband, the originator of the uncopyable philosophy, and his book is great. Of course, I've got an uncopyable sales book. By the way, Ruth has a bunch of books too. But let's get back to your moose and how do you approach this?
All right. So my moose is contractors, which is a small enough niche as it is. When I'm going to work one-on-one personally with contractors, they have to be somewhere between $1 million and probably $5 million on average. They have to be service and replacement oriented, not new construction oriented, which means plumbing, electrical, HVAC, pool and spa, generators, people who are in either the home services business or in the business services businesses. And so we do a lot of work, or I do a lot of work. That's the one-on-one. And that's what I have a very great group that I call profitability group. And that is only by referral and invitation now. 30 years ago, that was not the case.
That's one of the benefits, right, of being in business for a long time and being successful. But I have to commend you for dialing in so far on that, into that moose. So you really have a specific group that you can help.
So that's really the moose that I go after for a personal level of personal coaching. And I love doing that. It's always so much fun to watch the light bulb goes on. I had a conversation with one of my clients He goes, I never had these problems until I started working with you. And he's having growth problems right now, growth issues and everything else like that. And he said, I asked for this, didn't I? And I said, yeah, you did ask for it.
Careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah. And it's funny because he'll get through it all. We'll get him through it all. And, if we look at where he is today versus where he was, when we started working together a couple of years ago, he's been able to buy property. He's been able to buy buildings. And so he's really in a situation where he's so much ahead of where he was when we first started. He was in his man cave in another building attached to his house. Okay. And we've grown it from there. So anyway, so that's what I do from a personal basis. And that's really the most there.
And can I just add one thing that is the case with a lot of salespeople who, sales has kind of a bad rap. But when you look at it as helping people, like you've done with this person's business, I mean, that's so gratifying.
Yes,
You've made a huge difference. And that's something that I think salespeople forget, that we are really making a difference out there. And that's a great example.
Yeah. So overall, that's the niche. Now, if you look at, for example, the HVAC industry, only 25% of the contractors who are service replacement contractors are north of $1 million in revenue. Most of them are really little. And it's like, okay, what can I do for the little guys? Well, I have written an e-zine. I don't call it a blog because I literally do it through constant contact every single Monday since June of 1999. I have missed maybe 2 Mondays in the beginning because of technology issues, but there was no constant contact back then or anything like that.
Yeah. Consistency is key, right?
Yeah. And so that's been, I get tons of referrals from that. We get a lot of people buying the books. We get a lot of people who come to class as a result of that. I get distributors and manufacturers asking me to come teach, come train, and that is the core of what I have done since June of 1999.
So let me ask you then, how did you develop that list? It's been so long ago that you started it. And of course, you've continued to grow it.
Yeah.
If that's your way of reaching your moose and getting them to raise their hand and hire you, how do you acquire names for that list?
I don't acquire them other than through either people now send me an email and say, would you add so-and-so to the list? I do a lot of training. And people in training classes want to be a part of that list. I go to trade shows that are industry-related trade shows, and people want to be part of that list. And so that's how it's grown. But the reality is I've probably deleted more than the list size since 1999 because people unfortunately die. They sell their businesses, they move on, and they're not doing it anymore. So there's no need for what I do, at least from the contractor sense perspective. And then we started a podcast. We're on episode right at our 300th episode will be December 18th, and it'll be 6 years old next March. So that has grown even faster. And I get a lot of people, number one, now wanting to be on because we have significant downloads in a very small niche. But I also get a lot of people who, I listen to all of your podcasts. It's now time for me to do something, So
podcast is that's more marketing, but that brings new customers. So that's something that's been really effective for you, huh?
Yeah. And it was really interesting during COVID because there are so many podcasts that started during COVID. And if you look at how many of them never, continued, it's amazing how many did, 10 episodes, 15 episodes and quit. We're at, 290 something now that I'm recording.
Right. And you're my role model because of course I'm early on in my podcast. I'm having a blast, but yeah, it takes a real commitment to keep up on a podcast like that.
Yeah. And for Contractor Sense, which is the e-zine, which I still call it an e-zine, which was called an e-zine back in 1999. But it's for my moose, it's for my niche. And, and from that perspective, it's a long-term commitment. It's not like this social media stuff. I'm going to put something on social media and immediately we're going to get results. That is a strategy fraught with peril. All right.
Right.
So, for those of you who are listening and my sales philosophy has always been to provide value first and ask them for something later. And I never push. If somebody's not ready, even though they've inquired, I never push them because I learned a long time ago it never works out if they're not ready.
Right. And interesting. I just did another interview this morning, and, most of the really successful salespeople, including this Katie that I talked to, they don't push. They let it be the customer's decision that they want to buy, because you're right. In the long run, it doesn't work unless you're a door-to-door window salesperson. If you want reputation and referrals and long-term customers.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what I want. I've had people sell their businesses for, tens of millions now. And that's where the reputation comes too. Well, how did you do it? I did a podcast last week, and one of the people said, we were going to talk to you anyway, but we saw this notice about your webinar. And he knew one of the people that I had helped is, a former competitor and who sold out. And he goes, we want to do exactly what you did for them. So you just never know. It's just, you do things. And my plea to all of you out there is, if you're going to start something and make the commitment to start it, continue it. It's going to take you a couple of years till you really start seeing results. It's like that hockey stick. It's, little bit of stuff, little bit of stuff. All of a sudden you're going to hit an inflection point, and nobody knows when that inflection point is really going to be. And you're going to look at it from that point and go, oh, it's there. So, if you're selling and you have something that can be valuable from a content perspective to your prospective customers, and you can do it through emails, you can do it through a podcast, start it, invite some of them to be on your podcast. I mean, there's nothing like somebody going, yeah, I'd love to be on your podcast. And you'll get to know them better, number one. But number two, at that point, the conversation can start. And so, that's what I would do if it were me and I was starting over again. The books I wrote, and I'm laughing because all of my clients gave me all the stories for the books.
Yeah, really. That's true. It was easy to write because you had so many great case studies.
Except for the first one, which was The Ugly Truth About Small Business. And that was the story, and is the story of 50 business owners who went through horrific experiences, including me, and how we survived and what we would not do the next time, in hopes that people would read it and not make the mistakes that we made. Same thing for The Ugly Truth About Managing People. When we hit The Ugly Truth About Cash and Profit or Wealth, and The Courage to Be Profitable, and now 101 Dumb Financial Mistakes, that's all stories of my clients over the past 35 years. So
that helps to have 35 years under your belt.
Yeah. So
have the books also been a good, I'm sure they have brought customers to you, right?
Well, it's been interesting. I didn't write the books to get customers. I wrote the books because there's so many people who, number one, don't want to afford me. Number two, can't afford me. But they still need to understand what a P&L and a balance sheet is. They still need to understand that there are some stupid things that you do in business that are cost you a lot of money if you do them. And so by exposing all of these, and contractors don't like to read as a general rule, so they're unaudible. I've read all 6 of them. They're on Kindle. I mean, so there's no excuse. You can be driving in your truck and listening to a chapter.
That's right.
Very short.
Always learning.
Yep. So that's what we do.
If you get someone who responds to a blog or a podcast, do you have a process for turning them into a client? Because I know you do consulting, and I know you have some, groups of members that pay you. So how do you turn them into customers?
Most of the time, I don't. Actually. Unless with every podcast, there's something that, or with Contractor Sense, there's, every once in a while, I'll give something away free, like a free template or, a weekly cash flow report or a billable hours template, things that can help them. So my thing has always been, you give them the tools. At some point in time, they may or may not come back. I mean, I don't care if they work with me My thing is that they have to work with somebody to get them the knowledge they need financial side of the business, because no contractor started their business to do a P&L and balance sheet. I promise you that.
That's not their ilk.
Today's podcast is sponsored by the acclaimed book, Uncopyable Sales Secrets, How to Create an Unfair Advantage and Outsell Your Competition by Kay Miller. Put the secrets in this book to work and you'll make more sales, grow your network, and become a top earner. See the show notes or go to Amazon.com and search for Uncopyable Sales Secrets to order the book right now.
When they started their business, understanding what a balance sheet looked like was the farthest thing from their minds. But they have to in order to stay in business and survive. So when they get in trouble, that's when they start paying attention, unfortunately, for most of them.
So often they call you then and say, we need help?
I've had distributors and manufacturers call me and say, what do you think? And go, we'll pay for you to go out and look at it. And I've told some, yeah, they will do it. And I've told some to cut their losses and run.
So that is one important part, is that you don't want to be selling to everyone. You want to sell to customers who will have a great outcome, right?
Yep. So as I say to everybody, I either have very short or very long relationships with my clients. They're either going to do it or they're not. And I, as you well know, I'm very black and white, very...
Don't mince words.
Yeah. And so my oldest customer, who I started with in 1987, sold his business in December of 2021. And Larry and I are still friends. Obviously you get to know them really, really well over, about 30 years. I helped them value it and sell it because it was time for them to sell. And I still have clients from the 90s. So, yeah. And it's been fun because you might have had the owners in the 90s, you now have the kids.
Yeah, right. Generations, right?
At some point, I'll probably have the grandkids.
So our listeners are in sales, and of course, all kinds of sales. What advice, like you said, both of us have been around the block a few times. What sales advice would you give to our listeners?
Number one, listen more than you talk. Once you define, and whatever you're selling, whoever you're selling for, should have an idea of who your moose is. All right. Then go talk and ask questions. Don't assume things. So, for example, don't ask, how can I help you? Because, but don't ask, what's your greatest challenge? Because they don't know that. I mean, every salesperson asks that, but ask them from a question that you might have seen something. Hey, I saw this article in or I read this article on a blog, or I saw this article on YouTube. Does it affect you, and how?
That's a great question. That's a great way to find questions too.
And so what you need to be doing as a salesperson is not reading your industry in sales. Sorry, Kay. Sorry, Steve. Like that.
That's one exception, but
yeah. You need to be reading and digesting and doing everything you can find on your moose. And quite frankly, you might even ask AI in the ChatGPT 4. I have, when I get stuck, I put something in ChatGPT 4. And
that's amazing so we're only a few months in, literally, from when this came out. And good for you for already using it. And I do too, to get ideas.
Yeah, you can put up some.
Yeah.
But I get some ideas and some thoughts from it. And there's a web crawler now, and I don't remember the name of it. But and the reason I remember it is because there's a physician who's using it. And instead of him having to read all of the research and everything, because there's just thousands of articles coming out every day, he has a web crawler. He's been very specific. I want articles on A, B, C, D, E, F. And the web crawler goes and searches the web every single day, sends him a report with a summary every morning at like 7 or 6 or whatever else it is. He reads the summary, and if he's interested, he can find the article. It saves him so much time. You can do the same thing in sales. Have the web crawler do it, for whatever your industry is, whatever your moose is. and find the relevant articles, find the relevant blogs, find the relevant, YouTube videos or, research papers, and get the summaries of it. And then, okay, that would be good for that customer or potential customer. That would be good for that customer who's already a customer. And once you be the consultative person that they can rely on for data and information, you're going to be, they're going to listen to you, number one. Number two is you'll probably sell more, which is, the overall objective, but it's not how you get sales.
Right. And, I know Google Alerts does that. You'll have to look up that web crawler that you're thinking about.
It's more in depth than Google Alerts, because Google Alerts just shows you the stuff that's on Google.
Right.
Go back and read the research. This thing actually reads the research and reads the articles and reads the blogs and listens to the YouTubes and stuff like that and summarizes them.
Well, like I said, we'll have to get that so we can put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Let me see whether I can find it, and I will, I'll send you an email with it.
So
that's what I would do. I would do that. That's how I would do it.
So you're asking questions, but you're also giving them ideas of, is this particular challenge? Is that something you face? Or, getting more specific than what keeps you up at night, for example.
Oh, please don't answer.
It's like having to go to the bathroom every 2 hours or something.
The thing that also helps is, let's just say that the investment is going to be $10,000. You might, once you get comfortable with them and they start trusting you and get comfortable with you, say, I want to give you what the break even is on this investment. And I was going to come up with numbers anyway, because I'm a numbers person.
That's your numbers are your.
And so let's assume your gross margin is 40% and your product costs $10,000, whatever the number is. But I can do that number in my head. So if we take 10,000 and divide by 40%, that means 25,000. They have to either generate $25,000 in revenue or $25,000 in savings or potential for growth as a result of investing in your product. How can you help them do that?
So you tell them what this is going to be the benchmark for just, deciding if this is going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what else would you tell a new salesperson? Or maybe what do you wish you would have known back then?
Oh my gosh. See the great,
because I know you also sell some products.
Yeah.
And like I said, you sell your private groups.
Yeah.
So what's your advice to maybe younger salespeople?
I would have said no a lot sooner than I actually did when I first started. I had a lot more patience back then than I do now. But I would tell a younger salesperson, go find your moose. Make it a consultative sale. Go find the web crawler. Start providing value before you ask for the order. You got to build the trust first. And does that take time? Yes. Is that going to take time and knocking on doors or sending emails or, letters or whatever? The cool part, you guys use orange. Mine is more of the purple side. The thing
we're talking about branding. Yes. Everything we do is orange. What we wear, our books, the sunglasses, the
moose has orange ears,
the swag that we send out. Yes. And you've really hit pushed that to your customers too, because so many salespeople do try to spray and pray or whatever. They don't focus on the very best fit for them.
Yeah. And you have to be willing to walk away. Absolutely be willing to walk away. And if you're not, don't be a salesperson, because it never works out if it's the wrong fit ever.
Right. I do talk about, in my book, my early sales success and becoming the number one salesperson for this exhaust company, Walker Exhaust, got the nickname Muffler Mama, was really strategic and deciding which customers are going to do the most for me. And those were also, of course, the ones that I could do the most for them, the best fit. So even if you have someone that might fit your moose, the definition of your moose, you have to really then delve even deeper and say, do they have the budget? Are they, in a position of making the decision? All of those factors come into play.
Yep, absolutely. And this is a long-term commitment. This is not something you snap your fingers and tomorrow you're going to have a sale.
That's right.
Unless you're going to be in a retail shop and somebody walks into your shop. And even then, you got to entice them into your shop.
So how do you define your perfect customer, your ideal customer?
My ideal customer is a contractor who is willing to learn, willing to do what I tell them to do, willing to work on the financial side of their business, and willing to have heartache and pain as they grow. Because there is freedom on the other side.
That's
and
right.
I got a lot of cases where there's tons of freedom on the other side. And you got to be willing to go through the pain.
Do you use stories? I assume you use stories of other customers who've had those successes rather than just telling them.
Yeah, I don't. I just say, go call so-and-so.
Yeah, you probably have a lot of references by now. And it's interesting that you say you're not as patient as you used to be. And maybe in a way that's a good thing, because like you said, you could waste a lot of time on customers that won't pan out.
Yeah. I mean, I've learned, I don't know when I learned it, probably in my 40s, that time is more valuable than money.
Right. Right. What is your favorite part of sales?
My favorite part of sales is when a customer either uses me as a consultant or buys a book and has an aha moment and they get it. The light bulb goes on.
Right.
Fine.
You know that. Now, what about your products? I remember one particular story that you sell products, but you have put together some packages that were pretty, innovative to combine things in that way. Tell us a little bit about that and how that worked.
I do starting every Thanksgiving, we do the 12 days of holiday savings.
I love that.
Every day there is a story that is appropriate. So was it last year? I know what I'm going to do this year, but I'm not telling everybody because you got to be surprised about it. Yeah, it's under wraps. And every day there was a story about somebody who stole and what would happen. And it was based on the ugly truth about cash. And so it had to be a couple of years ago. But what happened is there was always a story. There was always a moral story. There was always a free gift. And then there was always an offer for 12 days. And I started Thanksgiving and it ends 12 days later.
Right. And the first time you did that, you were like, whoa, why didn't I think of that before? Right.
I didn't think of it. Dan Kennedy thought of it.
Dan Kennedy is a big marketing guru.
Yeah.
And somebody definitely worth following. I know that Steve and I both follow him. And when you say some stories of people who stole, so these are business owners whose actual employees are stealing from them, correct?
Sometimes it was employees. Sometimes it was vendors.
Oh.
Sometimes it was, like, for example, we had one situation where the owner sent a check for like $45 or whatever it was I don't remember the exact numbers. And when he got the checks back, when they were balancing the checkbook, it was $545. And the bank did it for $545. And he looks at it and goes, this doesn't make sense. So he goes to the bookkeeper. She pulls it. Sure enough. So a vendor actually stole. We've had situations where the vendor was in cahoots with one of the employees and they did work on the side that way. It's not always employees who steal. It can be your vendors. We've had situations where the bad guys have hacked checking accounts and operational accounts. Those little square thieves. We had a guy take the federal ID number of the company and put his name on it. It's his checking account. And instead of the customer, swipe the customer's credit card, thinking they're paying the company because it's the company name on it, but it's his bank account, they're paying him. So there's lots of stories out there.
Right. And stories are always great for selling, right?
People remember stories. They don't remember numbers.
Yes. Even though you might be the exception because you love numbers.
Yeah, but I like them in graph form. I don't like them in table form because table form doesn't tell me anything. The graphs tell me stuff.
Interesting. Yeah. Much more of a visual, huh?
Well, I'm not a visual person, but a table of numbers is just a table of numbers. It doesn't tell you anything. When you graph that table of numbers is when you really can see stuff.
So as we wrap up, I want to just ask you a little bit about your running and your marathons. So that has been, one reason is that so many people talk about mindset in selling. And I'm always looking for specific examples of how you create that positive mindset, keep you going. And I know running is really a passion of yours. And how does that play into what you do?
It's running and photography, both, actually.
Okay. I've heard more about running, but photography too.
I have not run a marathon since before COVID. And so I'm going to, I can run a half because I'm running like 8 to 10 miles a week. I mean, what's another 3, basically? But running is when I go clean my head out. It's, if I get pissed at something, I'll likely go to the gym rather than go running outside and go run on a treadmill for 45 minutes as fast as I possibly can and get rid of it. But photography does the same thing for me. My brain just goes and I get phenomenal ideas and things along the lines like that. So, that's how I use running. I use it to clean my head out. I use it to come up with ideas because I don't listen to my cell phone. I don't do anything other than just let my mind think. And maybe sometimes I don't even think about anything. I don't have headphones on with music or anything. I just run.
But it is amazing how taking a break, and especially I do agree physically, even walking or any type of activity, being outside, can really help you come up with new ideas, come up with new perspectives.
Yeah. I work out every single day. All right. It's not like Monday and Fridays, gym days, Tuesday's bike day. Wednesday is either running on a treadmill or running outside. Thursday's always running hills. Friday is another weight day. Saturday, Sunday are my long runs. That's what I do.
And I'm impressed because I have a love-hate relationship, I guess. When I'm into the groove of exercising, it's like an obsession. I can't stop. But then something happens and I do stop and it's really hard to get going again. So I really admire how consistent you have been for a long time with that.
Yeah.
And
I ran my first marathon 3 weeks before my 46th birthday. I started running when I was 44.
That's really good. Good for you. You're not quite as old as Grandma Moses when she started something new. way younger, but it is a great, coping skill for dealing with a lot of things. So
it is.
Absolutely. So I appreciate your time. And I don't know if you have any closing thoughts for our listening audience. You've covered a lot of great stuff. Do you have any final words?
Find your moose. Take care of your moose. Feed your moose with things that can help them so that they build trust and show them a way. You can use my little break-even formula to help them make a decision about investing with you. It is a long-term commitment. It is not something that you snap your fingers today and tomorrow it happens. It's build up and you will be very successful over the long term.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Uncopyable Women in Sales, your source for secrets you can use to make more sales. Check the show notes for links and contact information. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please spread the word by subscribing, sharing, and leaving a 5-star review. You can always learn more by going to uncopyablesales.com/podcast. Until next time, go out and supercharge your sales like a true uncopyable rock star.